guys, welcome back to Miss Hall Rates Reading. This is number 7 and today we are going to be looking at Artemis Fowl by Eoin Colfer. Eoin Colfer is an Irish author, should I say. And Artemis Fowl is the first in a series of 8 books, all about, with Artemis Fowl as the main character. The genre of this story is quite hard to pin down, I would say. It's a sort of fantasy book, it's set in the future, it's kind of a crime thriller, but also with magical elements. Eoin Colfer described it as Die Hard, like the film Die Hard, with fairies. So that helps you to understand the genre any better. The main character in this book is Artemis Fowl, and he is a 12-year-old criminal mastermind. He's not terribly likeable as a character. He's quite awkward socially, and he's not very nice to people, really. But he's the main character, and the general premise of the story is he kidnaps a fairy in an effort to recover his family fortune. This book was named in 2010 the Puffin, that's the publisher, the Puffin's favourite Puffin book of all time, which is quite an accolade. And there is a film which has been produced of this. It was supposed to be released at the end of last year, and then it got delayed, and then because of coronavirus it's been delayed again. So it's finally coming out quite soon, actually, on the 12th of June on Disney Plus now, instead of in the cinema. Yeah, it's a really popular book. A lot of you might already have read it. I know I've signposted quite a few people towards this. It has also sparked, obviously, the film I just talked about, and there's several graphic novels that have been written based on this. I'm going to read you a bit from chapter 1. Before chapter 1, there's also a prologue at the beginning, but I'm not going to read you that bit. Ho Chi Minh City in the summer, sweltering by anyone's standards. Needless to say, Artemis Fowl would not have been willing to put up with such discomfort if something extremely important had not been at stake. Important to the plan. Sun did not suit Artemis. He did not look well in it. Long hours indoors in front of the computer monitor, had bleached the glow from his skin. He was white as a vampire and almost as testy in the light of day. I hope this isn't another wild goose chase, Butler, he said, his voice soft and clipped, especially after Cairo. It was a gentle rebuke. That means telling off. They had travelled to Egypt on the word of Butler's informant. No, sir, I'm certain this time. Nugent is a good man. Droned Artemis, unconvinced. Passers-by would have been amazed to hear the large Eurasian refer to the boy as Sir. This was, after all, the 3rd millennium. That means 3000, the year 3000. But this was no ordinary relationship, and these were no ordinary tourists. They were sitting outside a curbside cafe on Dong Kai Street, watching the local teenagers circle the square on mopeds. Nugent was late, and the pathetic patch of shade provided by the umbrella was doing little to improve Artemis's mood. But this was just his daily pessimism. Beneath the sulk was a spark of hope. Could this trip actually yield results? Would they find the book? It was too much to hope for. A waiter scurried to their table. "More tea, sirs?" he asked, head bobbing furiously. Artemis sighed. "Spare me the theatrics and sit down." The waiter turned instinctively to Butler, who was, after all, the adult. But sir, I'm the waiter." Artemis tapped the table for attention. "You are wearing handmade loafers, a silk shirt and 3 gold signet rings. Your English has a tinge of Oxford about it, and your nails have the soft sheen of the recently manicured. You are not a waiter. You are our contact, Nugent Huan, and you have adopted this pathetic disguise to discreetly check for weaponry." Nugent's shoulders sagged. "It's true. Amazing. Hardly. A ragged apron a waiter does not make." Nugent sat, pouring some mint tea into a tiny china cup. "Let me fill you in on the weapons status," continued Artemis. "I am unharmed, but Butler here, my butler, has a Sig Sauer in his shoulder holster, 2 Shrike throwing knives in his boots, a Derringer 2-shot up his sleeve, Garrett wire in his watch, and 3 stun grenades concealed in various pockets. Anything else, Butler?" "The cosh, sir." Oh, yes, a good old ball-bearing cosh stuffed down his shirt. Nugent brought the cup trembling to his lips. Don't be alarmed, Mr. Wang, smiled Artemis. The weapons will not be used on you. Nugent didn't seem reassured. No, continued Artemis, Butler could kill you 100 different ways without the use of his armoury, although I'm sure one would be quite sufficient. Nugent was by now thoroughly spooked. Artemis generally had that effect on people, a pale adolescent speaking with the authority and vocabulary of a powerful adult. Nugent had heard the name Fowl before. Who hadn't in the international underworld? But he'd assumed he'd be dealing with Artemis Senior, not this boy. Though the word boy hardly seemed to do justice to this gaunt individual. And the giant, Butler. It was obvious that he could snap a man's backbone like a twig with those mammoth hands. Nugent was starting to think that no amount of money was worth another minute in this strange company. And now to business, said Artemis, placing a micro-recorder on the table. You answered our web advertisement. Nugent nodded, suddenly praying his information was accurate. Yes, Master Fowl, what you're looking for, I know where it is. Really? And am I supposed to take your word for this? You could be walking me straight into an ambush. My family is not without enemies. Butler snatched a mosquito out of the air beside his employer's ear. No, said Nugent, reaching for his wallet. Here, look. Artemis studied the Polaroid. He willed his heart to maintain a calm beat. It seemed promising, but anything could be faked these days with a PC and a flatbed scanner. The picture showed a hand reaching from layered shadows, a mottled green hand. He murmured. Explain? This woman, she's a healer near Tudor Street. She works in exchange for rice wine, all the time, drunk. Artemis nodded. It made sense, the drinking. One of the few consistent facts his research had unearthed. He stood, smoothing the creases from his white polo shirt. Very well, lead on, Mr. Nugent. Nugent wiped the sweat from his stringy moustache. Information only, that was the agreement. I don't want any curses on my head. Butler expertly gripped the informant behind the neck. I'm sorry, Mr. Nugent, but the time when you had a choice in matters is long past. Butler steered the protesting Vietnamese to a rented four-wheel drive that was hardly necessary on the flat streets of Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon as the locals still called it. But Artemis preferred to be as insulated from civilians as possible. The jeep inched forward at a painfully slow rate, made all the more excruciating by the anticipation building in Artemis's chest. He could suppress it no longer. Could they at last be at the end of their quest? After 6 false alarms across 3 continents, could this wine-sodden healer be the gold at the end of the rainbow? Artemis also almost chuckled. Gold at the end of the rainbow, he'd made a joke. Now there's something that didn't happen every day. The mopeds parted like fish in a giant shoal. There seemed to be no end to the crowds. Even the alleyways were full to bursting with vendors and hagglers. Cooks dropped fish heads into woks of hissing oil, and urchins threaded their way underfoot, searching for unguarded valuables. Others sat in the shade, wearing out their thumbs on Game Boys. Nugent was sweating right through his khaki top. It wasn't the humidity. He was used to that. It was this whole cursed situation. He should have known better than to mix magic and crime. He made a silent promise that if he got out of this, he would change his ways. No more answering shady internet requests, and certainly no more consorting with the sons of European crime lords. The jeep could only go so far. Eventually the side streets grew too narrow for the four-wheel drive. Artemis turned to Nugent. It seems we must proceed on foot, Mr. Nugent. Run if you like, but expect a sharp and fatal pain between your shoulder blades. Nugent glanced into Butler's eyes. They were deep blue, almost black. There was no mercy in those eyes. Don't worry, he said. I won't run. They climbed down from the vehicle. 1,000 suspicious eyes followed their progress along the steaming alley. An unfortunate pickpocket attempted to steal Butler's wallet. The manservant broke the man's fingers without even looking down. They were given a wide berth after that. The alley narrowed to a rutted lane. Sewage and drain pipes fed directly onto the muddy surface. Cripples and beggars huddled on rice mat islands. Most of the residents of this lane had nothing to spare, with the exception of 3. Well, demanded Artemis, where is she? Nugent jabbed a finger towards a black triangle beneath a rusted fire escape. There, under there. She never comes out, even to buy rice spirits. She sends a runner. Now can I go? It's a really good book. It's a very good story. There's a lot of kind of chases and shoot-ups and just a really good adventure crime story set in a kind of fantasy setting and in the future. So I'd really recommend this to people who like crime books, who like fantasy books, adventure books, fans of Philip Pullman, maybe fans of the Alex Rider series. You would really like this book. See you later.